What's up, everybody? We are back with our team reviews, profiles, whatever you want to call it. It is July 27th. Training camps for every team now, I believe, has started. So we're getting news, mostly kind of bad news, unfortunately, with injuries. But today we're looking at the Denver Broncos. Dad, Denver Broncos, where do they finish in the AFC West, if you had to guess? Just put you
Um,
on the spot.
yeah, I don't know. We were expecting him to light it up last year. Personally, I hope they're third or fourth. But realistically, they could be second. And even if they're third place in AFC West, they could very easily be a wild card team. Chargers, Chiefs, Broncos. We all know the Raiders are the toilet in the toilet, as we think. No one likes the Raiders anyway, but yeah, interesting year last year. We all thought it was going to be a very fantasy relevant Denver Bronco year, and it was not even close. One of the biggest shit shows I think we've seen. And that's funny that there's been a couple relevant pieces of news. One of them is Javonte Williams did not start on the PUP list. So that means he's healthy enough to practice. So that's good news. A guy was, stud running back. He got hurt last year and had big knee surgery, but he seems to be doing okay. We hope. Then Sean Payton kind of went nuclear and was kind of bagging on the coaching staff for Denver last year and kind of saying some things that were kind of funny, on why the Broncos, why they sucked. Russell Wilson had his entourage in his own office and all this other crap, and he says none of that stuff's happening anymore. So anyway, pay attention. There's a lot of things going on with Denver.
Yeah, that's what we, I guess, hope for. Yeah, I don't know. There's a good chance about the first guy we're going to talk about that maybe he's just cooked. So I'm going to share with you my screen, looking at the depth chart, and of course starting with the running back Russell Wilson, or quarterback. I mean Russell Wilson. Perennial. He was almost every year from the last 5-6 years. He was a top 10 quarterback every year. And then last year he was pretty bad. He was QB 16 last year, which is not good. I mean, the Broncos offense as a whole, they scored 29 touchdowns. So do the math there. That's less than 2 touchdowns, offensive touchdowns a game. Yeah, not even passing touchdowns, offensive touchdowns, 29. Really, really bad. So I guess, Dad, do you believe Russell Wilson can turn it around and get back to what he was in 2020 and 2021 and, the years before that?
Yeah, I think he can, so, I mean, if he can't, his goose is cooked as far as being an NFL quarterback, and Denver, is Denver going to go to the Jared Stidham, party or something? But I think the combination of, the offensive game plan, Sean Payton coaching, and, Sean Payton was a Bill Parcells, worked under Bill Parcells, so he's a big hard ass and stuff like that. You should get these guys turned around, get their offensive line fixed up a little bit, which I think they tried to do in the off season. Run some decent plays and run a better offense. And I do think he. Now you're going to ask me where he fits at, right?
No, I mean, yeah, it's just so tough with Russell Wilson. Like you can draft him as QB 18 this year, right? As QB 18. So If you do want to wait on QB and you really believe in Russell Wilson bouncing back, then you can get a pretty good value there. A guy that's going in the 11th round or whatever. But it's like, are you taking Russell Wilson over Geno Smith or Daniel Jones or Jared Goff?
Well, are you asking me? If you're asking me that question, I'd say I would take Daniel Jones ahead of that just because of his legs. Everybody else kind of falls into order behind that. So Wilson and and the rest of them, yeah.
Yeah, it's just there's a legitimate chance that he's just, like we said before, he's cooked. Yeah, that he's actually just not really that good anymore. He was always a highly efficient type of player. They didn't never pass the ball a bunch of times in Seattle, and he was just very efficient, getting those 30, 40 touchdowns in 2020, which is a crazy number. And 2021, I know he got hurt with his thumb and stuff. And then last year looked really bad. My only worry is he relied so much on his legs to kind of extend plays and get open and move the pocket and get out of the pocket and things like that. Could that just be gone at this point where he's 34 years old and he can't do that anymore efficiently, and that's a huge part of his game gone. That's not just like the rushing yards, but just maneuvering the pocket, getting out of the pocket, scrambling and things like that. Like, that was just so much of those deep balls to Tyler Lockett and stuff like that came off these kind of busted plays where Russell Wilson's scrambling to the right or left. So just kind of a little worried about that. But if you believe in Sean Payton to turn it around, and then you could get a really good value with Russell Wilson. I will say that if you want to take a chance on him, I wouldn't rely on him as your number one guy. Maybe pair him up with a a Daniel Jones or a Jared Goff if you want. Take a stab at two guys in the late 11th round. That's maybe a good option. So top 15. I mean, do you see him being a top 12 guy?
Yeah, I see him being a top 12 guy, easy.
Okay. Well then, yeah. If that's the case, then yeah, you definitely draft him where he's going, and you can get some value there. I
think what I do think though, in the past, some of his fantasy numbers, came from running the ball. I mean, he's 35 years old now. I think those days are pretty much, gone. So that is gonna, his fantasy numbers are gonna shrink a little bit. Is he gonna have 4,300 yards and 32 touchdowns? I think he could possibly,
Yeah, and that's going to get you probably into the top 12. It's not going to be week winning and stuff like that, but yeah, I do think he's never been a big yardage guy in his career. The most yards he has is 4,200. And I think when you think of these elite quarterbacks, which I think a lot of people thought of Russell Wilson, you think of guys that are throwing 45, 47, 5,000 yards, He's never been that, but he's been highly efficient with the touchdowns. He's going to need to get the touchdowns. He's going to need to get to that 35 touchdowns, and I'm just a little worried about that, in my opinion. But again, if he's kind of one of those, he's at that point where, again, you take an Aaron Rodgers and a Russell Wilson, and one of those guys is probably going to finish top 12. Same thing with the Goff and Wilson. Same thing with, Geno Smith and Russell Wilson. You pair those two, you're probably guaranteeing yourself a top 12 quarterback. So it's not a bad strategy. But yeah, into the running backs, you mentioned it with Javonte Williams, that not only was he not put on the PUP, which is important, it also could mean that he's just like running on the sideline in practice. But then I read, I think it was today, that he was cleared for contact. So it's not that he's just running on the sideline in shorts. It sounds like he's going to be taking contact. Very intriguing there. Very, very intriguing. We'll start with Javonte Williams. The guy had a lot of hype coming out, coming out as a rookie in 2021. Obviously was in like an almost exact timeshare with Melvin Gordon. I think like to the T. Like the snap percentage was 50%. They both had like 200 carries. They both had like 40 catches. It was like ridiculous how much of a split it was. But he looked good. Looked good coming out of college. Again, his rookie year, he caught 40 passes, 200 carries, over 900 yards, 7 touchdowns. And we thought, all right, 2022, he's gonna smash. And then obviously, we had the major injury. He wasn't exploding his first 4 games. Like his best yardage game was 75 yards rushing. He did have an 11 catch game the first week, which was kind of crazy. But yeah, he really wasn't going off those first 4 weeks. But the entire Broncos offense was terrible. Dad, are you in on Javonte Williams now that you've heard that he's cleared for contact, not on the pup? Are you in on him? And do you want to draft him? Let's say he's sitting there in the early to mid 5th round, maybe late 5th round.
I would draft him in the 5th round.
Yeah,
as long as he progresses through training camp and preseason games. If he plays, they may not play him. They may play him. A series or 2 or something like that. And if those things happen, then I'm all in. I think I'd be pleased. I think the guy behind him, Samarji Piran, I think he's not bad either. So, but I don't know if he's a big volume guy as an RB1. But he looked pretty good with Cincinnati when Joe Mixon got hurt. So I think he leads. Oh man, I think he has the record for most yardage in one game in the NCAA. It was like for Oklahoma, it was a ridiculous number. Like
Monte was North Carolina. Oh, Samaje Perine, you're saying?
Yeah, Perine. Sorry, I kind of stole moved it on to the next guy, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, just going back to Javonte. It's intriguing. I'm very much against running backs coming off of major injuries, just players in general coming off of major injuries, running backs and receivers, just because the numbers are there. Like they don't do well. The previous, the next season. We saw it last year with like J.K. Dobbins, and it took him a while to get going. James Robinson, freaking got traded in 4 or 5 weeks in, like Cam Akers and stuff. I know maybe there was more going on there, but Adrian Peterson, he had that 2,000-yard year. He's a freak. He's a Hall of Famer. They don't build Adrian Petersons every day. Is Javonte that? Maybe, but I'm just slightly worried. But it's much more intriguing knowing, like, okay, if he can start week 1 and shake off the cobwebs over the first 3 weeks, and then he can get going, I'm much more in on him. I'm more worried about, you're going to miss the first 3 weeks, and then you're going to come back and shake off the cobwebs for 3 weeks, and now we're 7 weeks in, and then you got to wait until you see a game from him. You're not starting him till week 7 or 8. You're over halfway through with your fantasy season, and taking those guys in the 5th round, 6th round, you're just destroying your team, right? So a little more intriguing, and we're going to watch it through, like you said, through preseason maybe he is going to be there for week 1, and that's very, very intriguing, especially because Sean Payton is the coach. And you go back to like when Sean Payton took over the Saints, basically every year that Sean Payton was on the Saints and the offense coordinator, they had like a top 5 fantasy running back room every freaking year, whether it was Pierre Thomas, Mark Ingram, Reggie Bush, Darren Sproles, Alvin Kamara, like all these guys, right? Like they're all fantasy relevant because of Sean Payton's system. So it is really, really intriguing to maybe get him in the late 5th round. So Samaje Perine is a good player. I think it hurts a little bit that the news of Javonte. But again, we just went back and talked. Sean Payton doesn't like to use just one guy. He incorporates a lot of guys. And what is what role is Javonte going to be, and what role is Samaje Perine going to be? Is Javonte going to be the Mark Ingram and Samaje Perine the Alvin Kamara light, or vice versa? I don't know. So, are you saying that you're good drafting Samaje Perine? What?
I am.
10th
I
round,
think
11th round?
yeah, it's got to be a little farther down, I think, but if I need for him to fill in on bye weeks and stuff like that, I think I would be okay with that. So
yeah. Yeah, it's just tough now, again, if Javante's going to be there. But I do think they both can be fantasy relevant. It's just at what price? What price are you going to take them? So, yeah, this is a situation where you can't really say much more. We got to monitor it, see what happens in the preseason. If Javante's not there to start the season, Samaje Perine gets bumped up to 7th round. If Javante's there, then Javonte to me is a 5th or 6th rounder guy. The only last thing I'll say is in North Carolina, Javonte split time with Michael Carter. His first year in the league, he split time with Melvin Gordon. Even last year, he was kind of splitting time with Melvin Gordon. Maybe Javonte Williams is just a back that needs to split. There is that possibility. So, any last words on these guys?
no, not really. No.
Okay. We'll get into the receivers, maybe a little more intriguing. We have, of course, Jerry Jeudy as the one. Portland Sutton here as the 2, and then Tim Patrick coming back from, I think it was an ACL, coming back from an ACL. As I put him as the 3rd. This is an interesting receiving room. We'll kind of get to those later guys, but Jerry Jeudy, Dad, you can start with Jerry Jeudy. I know you.
Yeah, just I don't know. Makes my stomach feel like I just ate Taco Bell. When I talk about these guys and the Denver wide receivers. Jerry Jeudy, Alabama wide receiver. He's the next coming of Julio Jones or whatever. And I'm sorry, and you can probably look at his stats and you go, yeah, he's okay, but I think if you're the 15th pick in the round or round 1, I think there should be a little more expected of you. And I know it's not always the wide receiver, it's the quarterback. So I'm tired. I'm tired of waiting for him and his buddy Cortland Sutton to break out, It's I don't know, just something's gonna happen this year though. Sure shit, something is gonna happen, and they go, well, I told you so, and it's like, yeah, only took 4 years, so
yeah. I mean, again, it goes back to if you believe that Sean Payton and Russell Wilson are going to turn it around, someone's going to have to produce on this team at the receiving core, and maybe it's Jeudy. He did have almost 1,000 yards last year, 67 catches. He was, when the Broncos offense finally started to get going, it was week 14 on, where they actually scored, I think, over 20 points, 4 of those 5 games or whatever, 3 of the 4 games. Jerry Jeudy was the wide receiver 2 over that stretch. He had in half PPR 29 points, 11, 14, 7, 21, 16.8 average. So when they finally started to get going, Jerry Jeudy was the guy. And he obviously has the skill set for being, the 15th overall pick, like you said. So I think I'm okay with Jeudy. The issue is, are you going to take him where you probably have to take him? Because someone in your league is going to buy into the Broncos, whether it's the Broncos fan or not, and they're going to take Jerry Jeudy probably in the 4th round. Are you taking Jerry Jeudy in the 4th round, Dad?
No, not me. Somebody might, because there's that, there's that vibe out there, about these guys, and like I said, it's been going on too long in my world. So
Yeah, to me, that's kind of where you're going to have to get him is in that fourth round if you want him. And I agree with you. Someone's buying into this offense. So I'm probably going to let someone else take him. But I wouldn't be surprised if Judy has his best year. 1,200 yards and, 80, 90 catches and touchdowns. We'll see, right? What I think is maybe more interesting is Cortland Sutton as the wide receiver too. Cortland Sutton, kind of another story of just like potential that we haven't seen really play out. He had one really good year with in 2019, 1,100 yards, 6 touchdowns, 72 catches. And then since then, he tore his ACL, like I think the first game in 2020, 2021, came back from it, didn't look so great. 2022, he had moments, but in the end, he failed to put up 850 yards and only had 2 touchdowns. Has never had more than 6 in his career. Dad, I think from what I'm getting, you're kind of you like Cortland Sutton this year, or
no, I don't know. I have a problem with both those guys, so I can't sit here and say, I thought Sutton was because Sutton had already got like a second contract a couple of years ago. Again, we can blame the quarterbacks that Denver's had or something like that. They've looked good. They both look good, and somebody's going to play well for Denver. I wish I had a magic crystal ball to be able to say who that is. When I say play well, I need to see a wide receiver with 80, 90 receptions and, over 1,000 yards and, half a dozen, 6 to 8 touchdowns. That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I think I'm out on Cortland Sutton. You still have to invest so he's going 9. He's basically like a Brandon Cooks, right? He's going right around Brandon Cooks. So you basically have to invest a 9th round pick in him, maybe an 8th round pick if, again, there's that player that believes in the Broncos, that fantasy manager in your team that believes in the Broncos. And that's still, to me, kind of rich. And I think this season for the wide receiver core is going to play out one of 2 ways for the Broncos. You're going to have just assuming that I'm going to assume the Broncos are a competent offense, even just the middle of the pack offense. They're not going to be like last year. I'm assuming they're going to be competent. It's going to work out one of 2 ways. Someone's going to have a big season, 1,400 yards or something, close to 100 catches and stuff like that. And to me, that's going to be Jerry Jeudy. Or it's going to be, a bunch of guys getting 600 to 900 yards. Yeah. One of 2 ways. And my only worry with Cortland Sutton is there's too many guys on this team that I can realistically see being the number 2 target. Starting with the 3rd receiver here, Tim Patrick, who I think is a little overrated, but he got a big contract. He tore his ACL at the beginning of the year. I think he didn't even play last year. The guy is 30 years old, or he's 29 years old. He's never had more than 750 yards in his career, so slightly overrated, but has looked good at times. He can have the 2nd most targets on this team. Marvin Mims, a rookie 2nd round pick who the Broncos traded up for and used their first draft pick in the entire draft to take. Marvin Mims could be, the 2nd target getter on this team. And even a guy like Marquez Callaway, which I know sounds crazy, but Marquez Callaway, old friend with Sean Payton, and Sean Payton's last year in New Orleans, Marquez Callaway, it was 2021. Marquez Callaway was the leading receiver for the Saints. Now, that's not saying much because they had pretty crappy receivers, but he was their guy. And Sean Payton seems like a guy who wants to have guys that he trusts, right? So there's just too many possibilities.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, for people who are watching this, take a look at, not the first three wide receivers, but the second stringers, Marvin Mims, Callaway, and even Hamler's okay, I guess, but I'm not saying. But those two guys, Marvin Mims and Callaway, these are some good backup so-called backup wide receivers right now that very well could be part of the Broncos' offensive resurgence if it happens. Marvin Mims, especially Callaway, there's a reason that he's on that team. The coach wants him. So, and he's probably looking to get rid of Judy or Sutton any chance he could, or dump Patrick or whatever, you know how it is. So they want to get rid of contracts and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, there was that rumors of they're trying to trade both of those guys. They obviously didn't, but Cortland Sutton feels like the perfect candidate of just the guy that doesn't fit Sean Payton's system. He's not this overly talented guy. He's not the 15th overall pick in the NFL draft that you kind of have to give another year. You kind of are obligated to have to start Judy and see if he could be the guy. It just worries me. It really worries me. Like we just said, there's three guys, in my opinion, with Patrick, Mims, and Callaway who can all, in my opinion, out-target Cortland Sutton. And so that just worries me. I'm not going to invest a 9th round pick. If he's there in the 12th, that's different. In the 11th round, that's fine. I'm not going to invest a 9th round pick in him. So, tight end, Greg Dulcich. I have a theory on Greg Dulcich. Again, I think he's slightly overrated. He was in competition with Trey McBride. It's maybe the best tight end coming out of the draft last year. And I think a couple things like Greg Dulcich's hair is one of the things. And also the Broncos offense was just so terrible that when Greg Dulcich had a big game and a couple big catches, it was like, thank God someone on the Broncos is doing something. There's life. And so, I think we slightly overrate Greg Dulcich. I think he's a solid player. Sean Payton has been saying nice things about him. Greg Dulcich, is he a guy that if you want to wait on tight end and take a couple shots at a couple tight ends, is he a guy you're targeting in the double-digit rounds?
Yeah, I think he could be. I'm always, I guess, mentally thinking for a tight end, is the guy going to get you 50, 60 passes? That might seem like a little more than what Dulcich is going to do, because the guy behind him, Albert O, is probably going to catch some passes. But so, do I need a tight end too on a team? Dulcich is there. I wouldn't have a problem taking him.
Yeah, he's in that double tap tight end range for me, where I like to wait if I don't get Kelsey or Andrews. I like to just wait until you can get him in the 12th round, and you can get him and Chigakonkwo back to back, or him and Tyler Higbee back to back, and you hope that one of those guys becomes a top 8 tight end. I think there's a decent chance one of them do. So, they've been talking about Dulcich with the playing the Joker role of the Sean Payton's offense, and basically what that is just like a player that does things outside of their position. Like Darren Sproles was the Joker. Alvin Kamara is the Joker, has played the Joker role. Reggie Bush was the Joker role. And so you hear that thrown around with Dulcich. It's like, oh, shit. Are they going to give him carries? Are they going to let him do that? So if they do that, if he gets a carry and a half a game, then there's some intrigue there, because now you're thinking, all right, let's just say he gets 20 yards rushing every couple games. That's pretty valuable for a tight end, right? That's 2 points.
Yeah.
There's intrigue. There's intrigue to do that double tap, but like you said, Albert O, is a decent backup who a lot of people are thinking was going to break out last year. Adam Troutman is a former Saint that a lot of people liked. They liked his skill set and his profile, and he's joining back up with Sean Payton. He's a third-round pick in 2020. It's not like the guy was a scrub, and he flashed a couple times, and now he's back with Sean Payton, the guy who drafted him. So a little alarming there, but any last words on any of these players, Dan?
No, not really. Just the Denver offense is supposed to be better this year, so somebody's going to have to produce besides the quarterback. Like I've said for years, somebody's got to run the ball, somebody's got to catch the ball. So geez, I wish we had a more positive idea on what's going on here. I think the most positive thing that we have is we know the coach is pretty damn good. So it'd be kind of crazy to think that something good's not going to come out of it.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And top 10 offense? They're going to make it?
No, I'd say maybe middle of the road. Like I'll just say 15.
Yeah.
Maybe more like 12 to 15.
Okay. Yeah, and you're going to have fantasy producers from that. So we're going to wrap it up there. As always, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We'll be making Dynasty content all year long. And we're moving along to the Detroit Lions. So we will catch you guys tomorrow.